you fancy disagreeing with me, Costa? I'd love to see where we would disagree.
I think we disagreed recently.
On what?
Last time we met, we disagreed on something. I can't remember what it was now. About the COVID. About we got to give them a bit of time of day. We got to respect.
And I was like, no.
Yeah, and I said,
I know. I am coming to terms with it. I have to say that your stance did rub off a bit on me. And, you know, whenever I hear about an anti-vaxxer or an anti-masker, I'm like, okay, I want to go deep and see, are you really like completely anti-vax? Or is it just maybe the mandates that you had an issue with? Or do you have
genuine concerns that just need answering because our leaders and our authorities and the experts aren't explaining it as good as they could be?
Yeah, there you go. So, you know, I'm warming up to the idea. I'm getting there. Yvonne, move the microphone closer to you. Just drag it, pull it. Can you do that? Yeah.
There's okay?
Yeah, just don't want to... As long as you speak, can you flip it up? Those are
What do you mean?
Psilos. Push that down.
Like that?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
That's better?
You got to get used to this, Costa. Have you started recording?
I did one.
You did one?
I've recorded one. I've got to edit it and...
Can you share with us or not? Who is it?
Magda Zenon.
Magda! We love Magda. Okay, so I will give you the opportunity to plug your podcast. What's it about? What's it called? And when can we hear it?
Well, I'm expecting it to be released in about a week.
Ooh, so ready for summer?
Yes. Your summer hot listening. Yes, I've interviewed Magda Zenon, who... It was a bit of a symbolic choice because Magda is one of the first, if not the first, podcaster on the island.
Yep.
She's amazing. She does amazing work. She's interviewed everybody that I know. Her interviews are very interesting. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to interview the interviewer.
Okay.
So Magda kindly accepted the request to be my first. So
excellent.
We discussed human trafficking and gender and children and politics. It was a very casual conversation for about 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, and...
did you enjoy it?
I did.
It's nice being able to ask questions.
Yes, but I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was intimidated because Magda is the expert and the beacon of all podcasts. So much like you, is a leader in the field. So I'm an amateur.
Well, you know what? If there's one piece of advice that I can give you, it's just be curious.
Yeah.
That for me, that's what it is. I don't pretend to know everything because obviously I don't. Actually, I know nothing. And the reason why I bring all these people on the show is because I want to learn. Mm-hmm. But I find that just being curious, which is what a lot of people are about a multitude of issues, is what gives you that edge.
Yep. Yeah, and I do, and I want to expose people, and I mean this in the positive sense. I want to expose these people to the wider audience. There's a lot of people doing good work. There are people that are well known, and there are people that are not known at all, but they're doing critical work. And I've got a bucket list of people I want to interview. It's about 40, 50 people on this list. You're on there.
Of course I am.
But I'm not going to bring you in for a little while yet because I want to be a bit more professional by the time I get you.
Practice and then bring me in. I had one of those lists. And you know what, Costa, what the interesting thing is that I did that list on the beach in 2019 when I was thinking of doing the podcast. And the amount of names that I've crossed off that list in the last 2-3 years when I've been doing the podcast, it just goes to show that once you put pen to paper and you imagine it, it can happen.
And I'm assuming crossed off because you've interviewed them, not because you've changed your mind about them.
Some people I've changed my mind, I have to admit.
Fair enough.
But yeah, others, they came.
Yeah.
We spoke, we became friends, we discussed, and it, in some cases it was just like I imagined. In others, it was much better. In others, I was freaking out and, fangirling too much, which I tend to do. So I'm really looking forward to your podcast. What's it called?
Terra Nullius Cyprus. Now, Terra Nullius means no person's land.
You're pushing it, man.
It's what they called Australia. That's what the white Europeans called Australia when it was so-called discovered. Absolutely ignoring the fact that there were indigenous Australians there for 60,000 years. So it was called Terra Nullius until eventually it took the name Australia.
Okay.
So I thought Cyprus is a bit of a Terra Nullius. First of all, we have the buffer zone. And my thought was I want to populate the buffer zone with sounds of human voices, but populate the entire island with these personalities. So...
But what you said earlier about the fact that there are a lot of people doing stuff that we know about, and then there are shitloads of people doing stuff that we don't know about.
Yeah,
and
the unsung heroes.
Yeah, and you know, when I first started the podcast, I was like, this is Cyprus. How many people can I interview?
You'd be amazed.
It's shocking how many people there are doing amazing stuff.
It's not just that, but I'm a strong believer that every single person has a story. Some more interesting than others, but everyone has a story. Now, if you're able to weed that story out, and if that person's willing to share, then that's something special.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I've ever met anybody that doesn't have an interesting story to share.
Are you doing video or is it just audio?
No, it's just audio.
I'm 100% just audio. And what you said now about sharing stories, it's very different when you put someone in front of a camera and a spotlight. And it's very different when it's what we've got right here now. We're just talking.
Plus, I have a face for radio.
No, you don't say that. You would be great. But I feel that the content and the actual discussion and the golden nuggets that you get would not come out if you had...
a camera on people.
Exactly.
No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some that maybe would be nice to video record, but I think that's next level, and we worry about that in the future.
You know what? People always say that it's better to get a bigger reach. You know, people tend to like visual. And I've had it many times, people saying, I don't really want to just listen. Can I watch it somewhere? And I'm like, no, it's not available to watch. And then also, with a bigger reach, you get more loonies as well, watching and commenting. And it sort of like disrupts the nicety of it. We're going to talk about some loonies today.
Are we?
Okay,
Perception.
Right. So I texted you on, when was it? On Thursday? Oh, I think, and I was like, okay, I've got two topics. One has absolutely nothing to do with the other, but they are topics that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I've thought that specifically with one of them, you would be the ideal person to talk to about it, being a political analyst that you are. So one of the topics is the rise of the far right in Europe. I have questions.
I'm sure you do. I think everyone does.
That need to be answered. And the other topic is inside the world of the ultra-wealthy extreme tourism. And this stemmed from the recent tragedy.
Titanic Part 2.
Titanic Part 2.
Yeah, the sequel.
I love that. Yeah, you wanted to see the Titanic go. Yeah, no.
There will be a movie about it one day.
There will, won't there? So yeah, I have a slight morbid fascination with the Titanic, as I think a lot of people do have. And this sort of like just added on to that fascination. And then it brought on this whole other world of extreme tourism. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Yep. So, yeah, those are the two topics we're going to discuss. And we have recommendations for you to watch, read, listen to. And hopefully Costa will be able to share some restaurants, places to go, because you like to
travel around.
You like to go around, don't you?
I'm a foodie and a sightseer.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. Right, so let's get started. Okay, right. Far right. First of all, when we say far right, it sounds like something very extreme. Like there's the left, there's the middle, there's the right, and then there's this really extreme version of all this.
Yep.
Is it fair to say far right? And when we say far right, what exactly do we mean?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. And I tackle that myself, where far right, your mind instantly goes to Nazism and this kind of extremism.
Yeah.
You think of violence, you think of death camps, you think of
Hate,
racism,
racism.
abuse, whatnot. There is also the far left. Some might call it communism, but there is a far left. And I have to say that as much as there is a growth in the far right, there is a growth in the far left as well. And I think this is a balancing out.
How would you describe the far left? I mean, we use for far right, we just said, conjures up ideas of Nazism, racism, hate. What about the far left?
Look, I'll give you an example of the far left that's further than communism, let's say. If you remember the Symbionese army in the 70s, 80s, they were out and about kidnapping political spouses and things like this, trying to get their message across. Whilst they weren't huge on killing, or certainly they weren't racist, but they were classist, which can be just as dangerous. And I have to admit that I can be classist at times. So I am concerned about the rise of the far left as much as I am about the far right. Now, many people have said to me, oh, but the far right is different to the far left, because the far left is trying to be more inclusive and more woke and more liberal. I'm like, yes, but when the far left also leans to violence, it's the same thing at the end of the day. And I mean, like, as we saw with communism, communism wasn't exactly happy, clappy people.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they also had their camps and their death groups of death marches and whatnot. So any form of extremism for me is a far extremism.
Okay.
But at the moment, our concern is the far right.
Is it a concern?
It is a concern. Human memory is very short. We tend to repeat history, unfortunately, over and over. World War II saw Europe change track. It saw Europe end, let's say, tolerance of far-right politics. It ended, for a while, it ended the leaning of the state as a whole to this kind of extremism. However, here we are 80 years later, no, a bit less, 90 years, 70, after World War, where we have forgotten what it means to be racist, to be collectively racist, to be collectively intolerant, and to allow and appease extremist opinions. And what's ended up happening now is that because you have the rise of the far right, the center right, even the center left, is taking on some of their policies in a bid to garner back some of the voters. So you might have let's just use a center right, might say, okay, let's be stricter on immigration, or let's be stricter on gender laws, or in a bid to bring in far right voters that have strayed away. The problem then, however, is that your centre-right party no longer is centre-right, and they start moving towards the far right. I understand and respect the concept of scaling back the bleed of voters, but on the other hand, if you don't stand your ground, then you end up becoming a far-right party, and you're just as bad as those that you're trying to tackle.
Why do you think people are straying and leaning towards the far right? What is it that's making them do that?
What I think is happening in Europe and the States, in the United States, is cost of living is affecting everybody. People's quality of life is dropping. It's a fact. The numbers are there. This is not an opinion. This is just economic statistics. So inflation, cost of living, the knock-on effects by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the blockage of the Suez Canal last year, the different things are causing cost of living to change. Meanwhile, every government looks for a scapegoat, and extremist parties look for a scapegoat to blame for these things. And it's very easy to blame migrants. It's very easy to blame the wave, I'll use the word wave of migration that's happening across Europe. It's not the first time Europe has seen a wave of migration. And let's not forget that Europeans were migrants for quite some time. I mean, millions of Europeans populated the United States, millions of Europeans populated Canada, Australia, New Zealand.
England.
England, okay. So, well, England is part of the United Kingdom is part of the European continent, but certainly millions of Europeans migrated to the UK. So it's not like Europe doesn't understand the concept of migration. However, and if I'm to play devil's advocate, and that's what I do, as you know, I play devil's advocate not to justify, but to understand and then tackle issues. Now,
but also to make people think.
correct.
Yeah.
We can't just say, yay for migrants, refugees welcome, a migrant is not illegal. You have to understand there are systems in place to control migration, and not to control migration for our benefit, as in the residents of a country, but to benefit the migrant themselves. Because if you have an open door policy and everybody comes flushing in, then you have issues of, is there job availability? Is there housing availability? And we have these issues in Europe. The cost of housing is skyrocketing. The cost of living is skyrocketing. You have difficulties with employment, or unemployment is rising. But that doesn't mean that you should close the door to migration. But what you do need to do is, I won't say police is the wrong word, to have policies in place where you bring in migrants via a proper system, application, weights, approvals, and whatnot. Now, that's just for general migration. Let's call these the economic migrants. Okay?
Yeah.
Then you have migrants, which are refugees and asylum seekers. Now, that's a different ballgame, because we do need to protect, and it is their human right to be protected. So if you have somebody from Syria fleeing war, then we shouldn't be closing the door on them. On the other hand, we can't have 1 million Syrians in our town square just sitting around doing nothing. It's not good for us, and it's not good for them. So my argument is, well, then what do? Do you integrate them? Do you move them on to another country? Do you return them? Or do you just have them sit there? Now, places like Cyprus, unfortunately, aren't doing a great job of either integrating, moving them on, returning them, or there just doesn't seem to be any system in place to make their life better.
Do we have an example of anyone who is doing a good job? A country that is doing a good job?
Oh, I mean, I want to say Scandinavian countries like Sweden or Germany, who have taken in a lot of migrants, a lot of refugees, a lot of asylum seekers. They are giving them the rights to work. They are helping them with housing. But of course, that is coming at a cost. So this is where the rise of the far right comes in, because to do this costs. It means building accommodation for them, or offering them cheap housing that could have been given to a poor German or Swede, for example. And that's where the far right comes in and goes, oh, look, they're these migrants, these refugees, these asylum seekers, and they'll brand them illegals and whatever. But for the sake of this argument, let's just call them migrants. They are indeed taking some of these potential benefits for locals. So how do you deal with that? Well, one might say, well, then build more houses and then offer more assistance to poorer locals. But then that, again, comes at a cost. So I would like to turn the clock back and look at post-World War II, what happened in net recipient countries of migrants from World War. What happened? There was economic booms. Germany took in so many Greeks and Turks after World War, where they helped to rebuild the country. And look at Germany today; it's an economic powerhouse. The United States took in migrants; it's an economic powerhouse. Australia was populated by migrants from World War II. I mean, before World War, Australia was almost unpopulated. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but it was less than 1 million people. Then all of a sudden it jumped to 10 million, whatever, and migrants built the country, developed it, put infrastructure in, and Australia now today is an economic powerhouse. Now, why should Greece, Italy, Cyprus, Malta, why should they follow this path? Well, if we look at Cyprus, we have per capita the highest number of asylum seekers in Europe. The Cyprus economy is shot, let's be honest. It is a struggle to bring people in. We are the front line. I mean, we share a maritime boundary with Syria, so it's only obvious that they will come here. I personally am sympathetic to the refugees of Syria because they are fleeing war. They're not coming here for, excuse my French now, for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
They're coming here because they are fleeing something. They're looking for a better life. Now, there are a couple ways of tackling this. We do need to integrate them. then somebody will come along and go, oh, but then if you integrate too many of them, we change the demographics of the island. I accept this. I understand this. So then what do? Just let them sit there in town squares, let them sit unemployed. I mean, that lends itself to eventually crime or aesthetic displeasures. I mean, you can't have people just sitting there.
But when you say change the demographic, because we hear that narrative quite a bit, I mean, is that something you say about England? Is that something you say about Germany, Spain?
Yeah, there is a concern. Look, I'm all for a multicultural country. I have no problem with that. I grew up in Melbourne, which is one of the world's most multicultural
That's what I mean. Cities. I mean, yeah, we have grown up in multicultural cities. Me as well as you, yeah.
It's an interesting question. And look, multiculturalism doesn't happen overnight. You can't turn Nicosia, for example, into a multicultural city overnight.
But the other thing that I was going to ask, is it really about culture or is it more specific about religion?
You know, I know a lot of people bring up the religion topic in Cyprus a lot. But
because you're hearing it a lot on that side. Yeah,
but I don't think it's so much religion per se. I think it's the otherism. And in Cyprus, we have obviously the division. I mean, we have the Turkish Cypriot, Greek Cypriot divide. I think a lot of people see Syrian migrants as a pawn or a tool of Turkey. So they're like, okay, whilst they may be sympathetic to Syrians per se, they're not sympathetic to the method of their arrival. Oh, they've come through Turkey, through the north, into the south, over the buffer zone. And I think a lot of them are concerned that they are being used by Turkey. And so they're not pushing back the Syrians per se, but the method. So when we look at Africans, for example, Cameroonians and whatnot, coming to Cyprus directly, I think there is a different angle to them. They're not talking about them as tools of Turkey.
It's just about the colour of their skin.
I hate to say it. Well, again, not so much the color of their skin, but the identifiable difference. A Syrian, I don't want to sound racist when I say this, but a Syrian walking down the street could look like a Cypriot.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Somebody that's Cameroonian does not look Cypriot.
Exactly.
But then we have some people from Africa that have been here for 50 years, that talk Greek or Turkish fluently, that are locals, and until they open their mouth, they're otherized. It's the visible minority. I mean,
because you hear it, Costa. You hear it. You hear when people discuss immigration and refugees. It's always the same. I don't see Greek faces anymore. I don't. And what do they mean by that?
Yes, you know,
this
is cheap. This is cheap.
That is what they mean.
Yeah, I mean, this is cheap. I mean, like if you go on Sunday to the botanical garden, the gardens behind the parliament in Nicosia, and you go there on a Sunday lunchtime, it's like being in Sri Lanka or the Philippines. But hang on a second, this is what most people are actually referring to. They go into the old town or they go there on a Sunday.
They say it more about the old town, actually.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, you know, all these migrants. Like, hang on a second, that's because it's their Sunday off. They are all living in your houses Monday to Saturday.
Exactly.
Monday to Saturday, they are in your home.
They are invisible.
But because they're a minority in your home and they're under your control, you feel okay about it. But the minute there's more of them than you in the old town or in the park, then suddenly you're scared, which is hogwash, because they are having a bleeding picnic. They are harmless. Now, coming into the old town on a Thursday night, and you walk around the back streets of Lidra, you might see a lot of African communities or whatever, but why is that? That's where the cheap housing is. I'm sorry, it's not their fault that the old town is full of cheap housing because no one wants to live near the Green Line or not have parking to park their car in air-conditioned comfort. So that's where the cheap housing is. You're not going to see them in Engomi. You're not going to see them in Makedonidisa. You're not going to see them in suburbia. First of all, they need to be near close to public transport. They want to be close to their places of employment or methods of getting to their place of employment. So a lot of them are near the town squares or where the bus stops are. I mean...
But also the whole thing about, we can't go into the old town at night anymore.
Rubbish.
Dude, could you before? I mean, I'm a woman And 30, 40, 50, I wasn't born, but 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't bloody walk in the old. I wouldn't walk anywhere.
Yeah, no.
At night.
It maddens me. It absolutely maddens me when I hear this argument. I can't walk in the old town at night. Why? Because they got a different color skin to you, or they look different to you. Is this why you can't? Like, well, they have different germs to you, do they? But it's okay to go to Ayanapa and walk around the town square with a bunch of drunk Irish and British and Swedes and Russians. That's okay.
Yeah.
There you don't feel unsafe.
But it's also okay to listen to their music and love their whatever else that comes from the black culture.
Yeah. Yeah, no. It's a poor excuse. And if I come back to using the politics of the far right, it's poor politics. It's let's blame the migrants, just like the Nazis blamed the Jews. Let's blame the illegals. There are illegal migrants. I don't agree 100% with there is no such thing as an illegal migrant. I believe there is, because there are people that are queue jumping. There are people that can afford to pay traffickers and bring themselves to the West or Europe, whatever you want to call it, where they could have just lived fine where they are. I'm not a fan of this kind of migration, because there are people that generally can afford to do that, or are really struggling, or they're victims of human trafficking and they can't queue jump like some of these genuine illegals. But the way the term illegal migrants is used is a joke. I mean, they cover everybody.
Yeah.
I'm talking about your 5-10%. But I've lost my train of thought now. I'm sorry. But no, the chain of migration into Cyprus and Europe, it does need to be, I won't use the word controlled, monitored.
I think that you said before with the policies.
Yeah.
That's it. And
you can't have people applying for asylum and taking 8 years for a decision. I mean, there is a lot of cases that can be decided almost on the spot. I mean, this is not fair, first of all, to the genuine asylum seeker. And those that are actually illegal and they jump the queue spend 8 years waiting to be deported. In the meantime, they've taken the spot, let's say, of a genuine in-need migrant or refugee asylum seeker.
Yeah.
So the processing needs to be sped up, professionalized, institutionalized in a correct way. Putting people in these camps for years on end and the mismanagement of these camps. We don't need to go there, but...
Shouldn't the EU have done something by now? I mean...
100% yes.
Set those policies.
Without question. They have a lot of things on paper, but I don't see a coherent, united EU when it comes to migration policy. You can't have countries like Cyprus, Malta, Italy, Greece taking on the burden and struggling to deal with the waves, whilst other countries put up fortress-like barriers. On the other hand, you can't expect every other country to just go, okay, you've received all these people, you've done a great job taking them in, now bring them over. But those countries can come here to our countries and help us with managing it. I mean, you don't want to take them to Hungary? Then how about injecting some more money into their integration in Cyprus, if you want to keep them out of Hungary? But I remember what I wanted to say before about the politics of the far right. They aren't tackling the genuine questions. They're not tackling why is fuel costing more? Why is grains costing more? Why is the cost of housing rising? You cannot just keep blaming everything on the left or the migrants or the LGBT community, or you can't just keep blaming others. You have to tackle the genuine source of the rising costs.
So I was going to say, we're talking about migrants, we're talking about racism. By the way, I found a report yesterday from Germany that said a government-commissioned report on Islamophobia concluded that anti-Muslim racism is spread throughout broad swathes of society and everyday reality.
Yep, I think that would be a global phenomenon in the non-Islamic world. Islamophobia, I equate it to Judaism, phobia, whatever, anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It's otherization, and it's an identifiable otherization. So it's, they are Muslim, thus different, thus not us, thus they are the people I'm scared of. I'm pretty sure that if all the Syrians coming across were Christian, we wouldn't have Christianophobia, right? It's a convenient labeling of migrants. Why are all the Christians that migrate within Europe not treated the same? There, yes, there is a religious issue because we are taking advantage of a religious identification to discriminate against someone. We've learned over the last 50 to 100 years not to use skin color terms to otherize others. So we don't hear people saying, oh, black migrants or black Africans or black. Because I'm sorry, but most of the Africans coming into Europe are Christian. So Islamophobia is actually just a word because they're bundling in Christian Africans.
It's a fear-mongering word, isn't it? That's what you're doing.
I mean, there is a post going around, and I'm going to find it for you, that, here we go, and it's about the anniversary of the 1974 war, and the title is, The Republic of Cyprus, a member of the European Union, has become the first modern Islamist fundamentalist conquest of the West, 1974.
Wow.
So
do we get a medal for that?
I mean, we are literally turning the invasion, occupation, the war of 1974 into a Islamic issue.
Oh my God.
And it is not and never has been. In fact, the Turkey that invaded Cyprus was a insanely secularized Turkey. And if AKP and Erdogan are Islamifying, that doesn't mean that we go back in time and change the realities of the past. I mean, yes, they are building mosques in the north and whatnot, but I wouldn't call it the Islamist fundamentalist conquest. But
I love the website name that you found that on.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a shame because this is where our allies in the West and the East, but our allies look at this and go, "Oh, come on, this is just extreme.
Yeah,
this is extreme jargon."
Yeah,
you know,
but it's one thing though when you're able to label it as extreme jargon. You, me. And then there are other people who see that and go, oh, my God, there, I knew it.
Yeah. So that's just tick boxed a lot of things. So these people that have created these have gone, okay, who are people voting for? They're voting for the far right. The far right is Islamophobic or it's anti-migrant. Okay, so let's label our protest rally against Islamic conquests. It's like, no, the Islamic conquest of the island was in 1571.
Yeah.
1974 was a political conquest by a neighboring country. You know, it's two very different things, and it's an appalling lack of historical knowledge.
I was just going to say, so what?
It's embarrassing.
Yeah. What is the danger here is that this is actually a narrative that we will probably be spreading to our kids within the education system.
Yeah, and thus we'll start labeling Turkish Cypriots as Islamists, which they are not. We'll start labeling Syrian migrants as, another Islamic conquest, and now they're coming from the south.
Yeah.
Well, via the north, but they're in the south.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
So we've spoken about migrants and racism. You mentioned LGBTQ. I think that's another added layer onto the rise of the far right. Yeah?
I think the far right and those that are against the LGBT community don't understand that they are seeking their basic human rights, respect, equality, tolerance, understanding. They are not demanding free housing, tax rebates. They're not demanding priority queuing at the hospitals. They're not demanding anything like that. So,
but what are they threatening, though, according to the far right?
According to the far right, they're threatening the change of the demographics. They're changing our children.
The institution of marriage.
The institution of marriage. They're changing our children's perceptions of the world. It's like the same way somebody became or was born gay, they grew up in a system that wasn't educating them on this. So how did that happen? It wasn't a bug in the air. It's in their DNA. It's them. It's their mind. They chose or they were born that way. I mean, I frankly don't care if it's a choice or they were born that way. They are that, and that's what they want to be, or that's who they are. That's fine by me. They are not coming and asking me for a tax break. They're not asking to move into my house and take up one of my bedrooms. They're not asking for anything other than what I have. They're asking for equality. They're asking for dignity. They're asking for respect.
Some would say that is the very issue. And that is the very reason of the rise of the far right. The fact that gay rights are becoming this big thing right now and a very real thing. And we're coming to the acknowledgement that, but I was going to say...
So can I just interrupt you?
Yeah.
I think where LGBT communities and whatnot are maybe lacking in their communication.
It's the visibility that affects that.
But they also need to explain to the people that are against them that we are not asking for more rights than you. And we're not asking for you to drop any of your rights.
You feel that the narrative has to be more specific?
Unfortunately, you need to really spell things out to people. I mean, I hate to admit it, but we're not the brightest species on the planet.
Yeah, but look at Italy. Look at what Meloni did the other day. She took away 33 birth certificates from same-sex couples with kids and literally erased the other mother.
Yes, this is not okay. This is not okay because
this is happening right now.
Yeah, no. So this is where we have the absolute other extreme. It's like you cannot come along and reverse truths. I mean, if you have a same-sex couple, let's just say there's these two women, one gives birth and the other one is the co-mother. That's it. End of story. I mean, why do we have to remove her name from the birth certificate? Why? She's the other parent. What guarantees that if I, as a male, I'm on my child's birth certificate, okay? What guarantee is there that I am indeed the biological father? What guarantee is there?
Just by gender.
Just by gender. Just by gender. And that my wife or the mother has said that I'm the father. I may very well not be. I am the father. But I mean, I may not be. And we know that as a fact that happens around the world where it's not always the case. And we don't do DNA tests on every single child that's born to confirm this.
Yeah.
But this is discrimination.
But, also taking it one step further with this narrative is the fact that you have kids who are born to single parents.
Correct.
So you're not just by talking about the institution of marriage and the what do they say, the hierophesmon dis οικογένειας,
the
holy grail of the family of or whatever it is, of the father and the mother and the kids. It's like you're literally discriminating against anyone who does not have a father or does not have a mother.
If the church or the government or a political party came along and said, we believe that marriage is sacred and it's a man and a woman and that children should be born to parents of both genders, and if somewhere along the line one of the parents dies or is divorced or whatever, leaves the family, if the church, political party or the government stepped in and economically filled the gap of the missing person and filled the gap of everything that's missing from not having two parents, then we could discuss. But as we know, this is not the case. I mean, I'm sure there are single mothers and single fathers out there listening to us right now. They're like, no, the government doesn't come in and plug the gap.
Exactly.
They don't plug the gap. They're failing to fill the gap when there's people with more than two kids.
Yeah.
And they're trying to bolster the population within indigenous Cypriots.
Yeah.
They're trying to bolster the population, but they don't realize that, a 70 euro gift once a year is not going to make me pop out kids.
It really is shocking.
Yeah.
We've got 3 kids, 6 kids
between us. Yeah.
3 boys and 3 girls.
We're doing our holy duty as the church has demanded to populate the...
There you go. And look at us. We're a fucking mess.
Yeah. Well, maybe not so much me, you, but
definitely. I've got no problem with admitting that. But yeah, you're pushing this agenda, that we've got a low birth rate. Why do we have a low birth rate?
There's various reasons. Globally, they notice that the more educated a population is and the wealthier a population is, the lower birth rate. Now, here's the irony, because in Cyprus, we say we have a lower birth rate because of the economy, not because the economy is high. So you need to look at the reasons. Why is the birth rate in Sweden lower than Cyprus? Where Sweden, the GDP, the economy is greater than Cyprus. What is the reason? Well, they have a high level of education. So do we. Well, let's be fair. But there are different reasons. So in Sweden, for example, they prioritize careers. They prioritize quality of life. They prioritize, okay, I'm going to have 1 kid, maybe 2. and I'm going to live a comfortable, good life. Now, in Cyprus, the same. We want to have a good life. We want to educate our children, and we do. We go off and get educated. We start families later. So, one, biologically, we are biologically going to have less kids if we're being educated, because it takes longer to be educated. Thus, you're popping out kids later in life. Thus, by default, biologically, it's going to be a drop in birth rate. Second, people are choosing not to have more kids because it's economically unsustainable. It's not like the old days where you had a village raise the kid.
Exactly.
And in today's world, the village is replaced by the government. So in Melbourne, I don't know if I mentioned this to you in the last time, but in Melbourne, they've made childcare free. They've made kindergartens free. They're doing everything possible to make it possible for people to put their kids in care and go and work.
Yeah.
Why? Because they want their taxes. It's not just because they're being nice and they want you to have a good life. Let's be realistic about this. Being a government means having a good economy as well. It's not just about the niceties of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not just about being liberal. It's about also an economy. So,
but that's more common sense than anything else.
You would think, but no, there's pushback. So you're putting kids in schools, in care, in whatnot. Then you have mothers and fathers going to work, paying taxes, benefiting the economy, and having a career. And especially for women, it helps their careers move forward. Okay. And the same goes with having longer maternity leave and having maternity leave that's actually paternity leave as well, so that men can take it if the woman has a choice to go to the career path.
What's the paternity leave in Australia?
It differs between the states, but it's not as good as Sweden, for example, but it is pretty good. It almost mimics the maternity. So, the mother can go back to work and the father can stay home.
Okay.
There is not as great as it could be, and they're working on it. But again, like I said, you have these daycares and creches and kinders and what that are all being now bankrolled by the government, because somebody sat there and crunched the numbers and realized, you know what, it's better to get the parents back into work. Now, personally, as Costa, I would rather parents stayed home more with their kids. I know that economically that's not feasible. If you could pay someone to stay home to be with the kids, I think that would be great, because I think kids do need the family. They need the bonding. They need love and affection. Safety. But like I said, we don't have the village anymore. And there's nothing now that looks like we're going to be able to reverse that trend.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like we're going to suddenly de-urbanize and go into villages and have aunties and uncles and grandparents and cousins at home now looking after kids. So unfortunately, the village has become the teacher in the schools, has become the creche parent, whatever, leader. So I think in Cyprus, if we may, and I have to admit, they've done a good thing where 3-year-old kinder was free for many people. So it was affordable because it was free. It was heavily discounted to put kids in 3-year-old kindergarten.
Okay.
And that's a new thing. I think that was good that they did that.
Here in Cyprus?
Yeah. So my 3-year-olds, they're now 4, but when they were 3, were going at a heavily rebated rate to the public kindergarten.
Okay. But isn't it like availability? Isn't it like...
Yeah, it is a...
tight?
There is categories that you need to tick, and if you have more than 1 kid, we have 3, so we got certain raising of the thing. Then they look at your income, they look at different things.
Okay.
So it
wasn't as simple as just putting your kids' names down on a list?
No, exactly. It wasn't. And it also doesn't guarantee that they'll go to the kindergarten near you. So ours aren't in the kindergarten across the road. They're in a kindergarten in the next suburb.
Okay.
But in Australia, the case is that pretty much it's the closest one to you. I don't want to compare Cyprus to Australia because it is a very different place.
Yeah.
But there are lessons to be learned.
Yeah.
Also, there are lessons for Australia to learn from Cyprus, by the way, like... chill out a little bit. Don't be such a police state. Well, no, I take that back. Not a police state. Don't be such a nanny state. Don't be so strict with your rules. Don't have such zero tolerance on everything. There are things to learn from Cyprus as well. But,
maybe they see it as a form of discipline. Because, we're definitely lacking discipline here in Cyprus.
We're lacking discipline. We're also lacking enforcement. We have really good rules on paper. We have
so many good things on paper.
Yeah. But enforcement's an issue, but also punishment. Just this morning I learnt about this case last week was the first conviction of a buyer of a trafficked human.
Really?
So the buyer purchased sex from a 16-year-old, a junior, who had been trafficked. So the buyer got 3 years, I think, and the trafficker got 5 years. Now, the fact that it's 2023 and this is the first time we have a conviction.
And I haven't even heard of it.
Correct. But what shocked me when I heard about it, just today I heard about this, what shocked me was that the buyer got 3 years, which that can be debated. Did they know? Didn't they know? I haven't seen the 16-year-old. I don't know how obvious it was. I don't know whether they thought it was legal. This, the judges decided, okay? I'm going to have to accept it. The human trafficker, however, 100% knows what they're doing is criminal and evil. 5 years is not enough. For me, this is a life sentence.
Yeah.
This is a life, because you, as a trafficker, have given someone a life sentence. You deserve a life sentence too.
No one gets a life sentence. We've got paedophiles here who are out in 5 years.
Yeah. No, this is beyond unacceptable. But as long as the people don't demand it and vote accordingly, it's not going to happen.
What have you got to say about Greece and the Spartiates?
What do you mean?
The far right.
Okay, sorry.
So I've got here that Spartiates, Spartans, Hellenic Solution and Nigi received 34 seats in parliament. 34, Costa.
34 out of how many?
Oh, I don't have the number.
250.
But it is the first time that far right is represented by 3 parliamentary parties at the same time.
Look, I wouldn't look so much into the represented by 3 parties, because Chrysiavyi was the party of the far right, which became illegal. So all the splinter cells and the spin-offs, let's say, created these micro far right parties. So none of them have generated enough attention to be solid on their own, meaning there's 3 micro far right parties where there could have been one major
one.
right-wing party. So
does that mean that there's disagreements between them? Or is it an
not
ego
necessarily.
power
It's an
struggle?
ego. It'll be more of an ego power struggle, because sooner or later, of those 3, 1 or 2 will die off and one will grow and absorb and merge, whatever. I mean, as a far-right party, let's play devil's advocate now, it's in their interest to merge. I mean, they need the numbers, because, I mean, you need to pass certain bars to get into politics. As their popularity wanes, which it should eventually wane as things balance out, they will need to merge to get those numbers back up. And again, they are, I wouldn't call them the successors of Chrysiavyi, but they are inspired by, populated by the voters of Chrysiavyi. Some might argue that a lot of Chrysiavyi voters voted for New Democracy. New Democracy, with Mitsotakis. And that's what I mentioned earlier about centrist parties or centre-right parties, or even right-wing parties taking on politics of the far right to garner their votes. Now, New Democracy would have garnered some of Chrysiavyi's voters, undoubtedly.
Is it kind of what happened here in Cyprus with Elam at the presidential elections?
Yeah, look, I mean, an Elam voter, now I'm going to be very stereotypical, but the statistics were there. Most Elam voters in the second round voted for Christodoulidis over Mavroyiannis.
But is it because they not necessarily agreed with Christodoulidis, but it was just a case of there's no fucking way that we're voting for a lefty?
It's like how we would always say vote for the lesser evil. So like people didn't like Hillary, but they voted for Trump because they didn't like Hillary. It was like, what was the lesser evil between Trump and Hillary? You know, so I think this is the case here. Is like the Elamists would have been saying to themselves, who's the lesser evil between Christodoulidis and Mavroyiannis? And they would have voted for Christodoulidis.
Yeah.
And the same, by the way, for leftists. And even the far left. Do we vote for Christodoulidis or do we vote for Mavroyiannis?
Yeah.
Who's come from Anastasiadis' presidency.
Yeah.
You know, they voted for Mavroyiannis.
The other question that I wanted to ask you is, do we have a proper left party or narrative in Cyprus?
No.
Thank you.
No, because
really cool. I'm coming to that realization with the little political knowledge that I have, is that it's non-existent.
The leftist party of Cyprus is Agel. Okay. Agel, by its own description describes itself as a communist party. Now, it's not really communist. Let's be honest about this. And they should certainly not be a communist party because that would mean other issues. They just label themselves as. They have a bit of maturing yet to be done as a political party. They are certainly more liberal than other parties. However, Agel has failed miserably at its PR. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's all these billboards that have gone across the island now.
I have.
Agel looking forward to the future.
Yeah, what's that about?
Which has surprised me because whilst they call themselves the Progressive Party and whatnot, a leftist party talking about the future.
And there's no red colour on it, by the way, if you noticed.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was quite funny because I'm like, oh, looking towards the future. Now, when has a communist party or a leftist party ever said that? I mean, when you talk about the future, that tends to be right-wing rhetoric, like the future, the change, the modernization, the economy, globalization. Yeah. So I do wonder if the higher echelons of Agel are starting to realize, okay, we did well bringing in Mavroyiannis, who's a moderate, when he ran as their candidate for the presidency. Do we need to change our rhetoric? I believe they've accepted that and they've realized that. Can't happen overnight. They have their traditional voter base, which won't change, and they're an older generation. But from what I'm seeing from the younger generation...
I was going to say, are they bringing in young blood?
The younger generation is becoming more moderate, but it's also questioning the policies of Agel. They're questioning their failures. Look, 17 years ago, by the way, today is my 17th anniversary in Cyprus.
Really?
Yes. So
easy.
thank you. So 17 years ago on this day
Have you
when I
regretted
arrived...
it yet or not?
We'll talk about that on another
joking.
episode. 17 years ago on this day when I arrived in Cyprus, the youth of Agel were hardcore. Agel, nothing but Agel, whatever they tell us. I'm proud to say, from what I'm seeing of the youth of Agel, they are now questioning, pushing back, demanding an input into the policies. And with the, not so new anymore, but the new leadership of Agel, Stefano, and the others, I think they've realized that we need to listen to the youth. 17 years have passed since I came here. I mean, the 30, 40-year-olds when I came 17 years ago are now nearly 60 years old. So... They have to wake up with the times. They have to catch up. And the same with all the parties, by the way. They all have a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
Most, especially the so-called centrist parties, EDEC, Vico, the Greens. These centrist parties for so long based most of their policy on the Cyprus problem.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing them choose to deviate from the Cyprus problem, which, don't get me wrong, we shouldn't totally forget the Cyprus one. It's there. It's real. It needs to be dealt with. But it shouldn't be the only problem and the majority of our problems.
Yeah, it shouldn't be the main focus.
No, it shouldn't be the only focus. So I've seen it with the Greens. The Greens have done an amazing job changing their rhetoric, changing their policies, modernizing, tackling other issues other than the Cyprus problem, not just the environment, but human rights issues, things like this. Then you have other parties like Vico, which have focused a little bit more lately on the economy, on, again, human rights, things like this, which is good to see. EDEC, not so much. EDEC is still very steeped in the Cyprus problem. They've obviously realized that their voter base focuses on that mainly. But when these central parties start diversifying their policy focuses, they may strengthen their power. And Agel and Lissi have realized this. And I think this is why both sides of the political spectrum are diversifying a little bit. I mean, Lissi, who would ever have believed that a right-wing party would introduce universal healthcare? Unheard of.
Yeah.
Okay? But Lissi, kudos to them, introduced, yes, see, okay? They introduced universal healthcare to Cyprus. We are all beneficiaries of this. I mean, it saves me a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thank them for this. And kudos to them. I'm going to call it out. Good on them for doing this.
Yeah. But wasn't it about time anyway?
Overdue. Well overdue. But they did it.
They did it.
Okay? And you got to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
Let's remember that in the old days, in America, It was the Democrats that were pro-slavery. It was the Democrats that were racist.
Yeah.
Okay? And flip, who are they now?
Yeah.
Okay, so the same thing here. I see this sea has become more. I mean, this sea had, its gender advisors, it's had its LGBT advisors. It's done a good job of this.
Yeah.
And good on them. Now, how much of that actually gets translated into policy and effective policy? It's another question.
Yeah.
Agel has had that for a long time, but it does need to bring it to the fore and really start.
I think it's what you said earlier. Work on your PR, people.
And they've got to mature as a party.
Yeah.
It's not the government anymore. We're an EU member state. We have a veto power. We're a country of migrants as well now. I mean, like, we've got to realize that it's not just a bunch of Greek Cypriot men in the government now.
Yeah.
And I think, bless them, I think Agel has woken up and realized this. It might not be too late for them.
Remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen.
And if they do wake up, they will be able to draw back in some of their votes that they lost to the centrist parties.
Yeah.
But look, I don't know if it was you that asked or somebody asked earlier, but the party to watch, I think, for the next season is the Greens.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of countries around the Greens are the kingmakers, the Greens are the third party. They don't often try to be the number one party. They are, they don't try to be what they're not.
Yeah.
And I think in Cyprus, they've really matured and they're really coming forward. I'm not trying to say who I vote for or anything like that now, but they're the ones to watch, I think. Meanwhile, Dipa, the break-off from Diko, is probably another one to watch. Will it be a more moderate version of Diko? Remains to be seen. But there are some parties, like I said, that I don't think are ever going to change. Adek's one of them. Alilengi, the solidarity with the Yialos, I don't think they're ever going to change. And that's what it is.
Okay, last question, and keep it brief, and it's not about Cyprus because we need to move on to our next one. Do you think Trump will win next year?
No.
No?
No.
Does that mean what?
How close it will be is the question. Because Biden has not been inspirational.
Oh my God.
Biden has been a non-eventful leader compared to the excitement of the Trump period. And when I say excitement, I just mean newsworthy events.
I was going to say, someone was comparing them the other day, and they were saying that, they were being ageist against Biden. And they were saying that there's not that much of an age difference between Biden and Trump.
It's a visible age difference. It's behavioral. I mean, like,
I was going to say, it's the energy.
Yeah.
It's the energy that Trump puts into...
Trump has energy. Trump is exciting. Trump is fun to watch. Trump is an absolute nut job.
Yeah.
Biden is boring. Biden is safe. Biden is suave. Biden is, white bread. I mean, he's nothing special, which may have been what the US needed after Trump. But I do wonder if there's a chance that they could flip back to a Trump presidency just because people are bored. On the other hand, I think, look, it remains to be seen whether Trump will indeed manage to run.
Oh, why? But he can do that from jail.
Well, whether he becomes a Republican's candidate, it's another story. The problem is that on both sides, they don't have leaders. They don't have anyone that can step in and be replaceable of Biden or Trump. I mean, tell me, who could replace...
Who is it? It's the DeSantis and...
I mean, we're struggling. We're squinting our eyes. We're struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you the names. Yeah, no. Who are the alternatives? I mean, in the Democrats, you could say, well, could Kamala Harris...
I was going to say, what about her?
I mean, is America ready for a black female president?
Yeah, you've got two layers on there.
There's 2 layers. They weren't ready for a female, it seemed. Excuse me,
Yeah.
but I've heard, they weren't ready for they are ready for the right female. Is she the right female? Again, she's been dry toasted. I mean, we've not seen much of it. I mean, look, this is us on the outside. I mean, in the States, it might be different.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going in a few weeks, so I'm going to talk to people.
Are you?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
So, California and Washington State. So, yeah.
Not jealous at all.
Don't be.
Let's move on. Okay, so inside the world of ultra wealthy extreme tourism. Did you know about extreme tourism?
Yes, I did.
Really?
I find it exciting.
Do-
We're going to disagree a lot on this session.
You know what? No, I do too. Give me examples of extreme tourism that you've heard of.
Christopher Columbus.
What an extreme dude.
I'm sorry, but back in Europe, back in the day, I'm sure they saw him as a absolute psychopath and wasting the government or the crown's money. You know,
Was he rich?
No, well, that I don't
Because
know.
in this part, we're
Yeah.
talking about very wealthy people.
Look, I don't think that you could be an explorer back in those days and get money from the crown without actually being already rich and well connected. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case with
Yeah.
Christopher Columbus. I can't imagine being a pauper that managed to strung together a fleet. But look, and again, like people like Captain Cook that made his way over to Australia. I mean, these weren't just run-of-the-mill you and me kind of people. These were people that were networked. And if you were networked back in those days, then you were wealthy. And I'm sorry, but if you could have a fleet of ships, that you're pretty much the equivalent of billionaires.
Yeah.
Now, they called it the age of discovery, but I'm sorry, but that was tourism as well.
Was it?
It was. I mean, like tourism as back then we didn't have tourism per se. We had pilgrimages. So you would have Scandinavians, Northern Europeans that would get on their sailing ships or their caravans and make their way to the Levant, and a lot of them would end up in Cyprus and in Famagusta and whatnot, traveling to the Holy Lands. This was old day tourism. It was marketed as pilgrimage back then. You had people like even Shakespeare traveled. And I mean, I would dare say that that was tourism. I mean, it was inspiration seeking, you know. Leonardo da Vinci traveled. This was inspiration sourced tourism.
Yeah.
Tourism for inspiration sourcing. You know, I do think that these billionaires and this extreme tourism, okay, you might say that couldn't those billions be better spent somewhere else? Yeah, but it is their, and it's up for debate, but this is their legitimately earned legal money. They can spend however they like. It's not up to me to demand Richard Branson build hospitals and children's centres. And I'm pretty sure that the Virgin Company does do some charities.
Yeah.
Or Bill Gates, he does do some charities. I don't know if Elon Musk has any charities, but I mean, you know, apart from the fact that,
Oh, you're going to make me look into that now.
yeah, but I mean, look, I would say that morally and ethically speaking, they should give back to society, and a lot of them do, and good on them. If they can afford to launch themselves into space or into the depths of the Atlantic, kudos to them. As
Yeah.
long as it's not costing me and you. Now, this is where we come to this
Okay.
latest. Yeah.
So I've got the number here. I looked at it this morning. What did that, and obviously now we're talking about the Titan submersible that imploded in the Atlantic last month. And for how many days? 3 days, was it?
Yeah.
There was a search going on. Okay, so how much did that search cost?
How much?
And obviously the bill is footed by the taxpayer. I'm just going to say that outright. $6.5 million.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable. If you and I went missing in the Rotis forest tomorrow, whilst, yes, the government will come and search for us, we're not going to cost millions. When I travel overseas, I have to get a traveller's insurance. If I go missing or if I have an accident and a helicopter's needed, I've got to pay tens and 20, hundreds of thousands of euros to cover my helicopter or my hospital fees. I shouldn't be expecting the taxpayer to cover my bill for extreme tourism. I think in general, I think there's a general sense of acceptance of normal activities. So a hiker in the mountain, a swimmer at the sea, these kind of people that, yes, the taxpayer-funded emergency services should help, yes. But if you're launching yourself into space or into the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, this is no longer normal civilian activity. You are clearly a multi-millionaire or a billionaire. You can afford insurance. And if insurance doesn't want to cover you, which I'm sure a lot of them won't, if insurance doesn't want to cover you, then you need to foot that 6.5 million euro bill.
Yeah.
Because you can clearly afford it. Why should I, as a taxpayer, fund the search and rescue of a billionaire's activity?
Yeah.
Now, I am not against them going into the depths to look for the Titanic, to sightsee. They could afford it. They paid for it.
Don't you wonder though, Costa?
how they got their money.
No, I mean the appeal of looking at the Titanic from a little round window, and the view and the image that you will get is exactly the same as you can get by clicking on a picture.
If you said to me that I could do that for €100, I probably would do it.
Would you? That was one of my questions.
I have never been in a submarine, and I probably never will, because I'm not claustrophobic, but I don't like the idea of going that deep underwater, and I know the dangers. I mean, I won't go 5 meters underwater, let alone how many kilometers it is. Okay?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm thinking of going anywhere near the water this year with all this mention of sharks. No, seriously, dude. Seriously. Like the other day we went to the beach. It was the Mackenzie beach, by the way. And I was like, kids, you do not go far. They're like, Mom, we can't even swim here. It's like, you do not go far.
You know that in Mackenzie you can keep walking until you hear Arabic in Lebanon, right? But no, I don't want to scare you. Just side note.
Yeah.
Most shark attacks happen in the shallows. That's where sharks come to feed. They don't come to feed in the depths of the ocean. Sorry to disappoint.
Oh no, I was gonna say no. I do. I acknowledge that, because even though I did not watch that video of the attack in the Egypt resort, just from what I read about it, I was like, no, I don't want to go anywhere near that.
Just keep in mind that Sharm el Sheikh and the Hurghada area is shark populated.
Yeah, there's been sharks there for it was just your bad luck, dude.
Yeah. Look, she's being attacked by a shark.
Did you see that video?
I didn't, and I don't want to, because I have a phobia of sharks.
But no, that's the other thing I was going to say. Are we okay with the fact that there's this video online of a man being eaten by a shark?
Yeah.
And that we're literally just watching it as if it's entertainment?
Yeah, no, I do worry about how desensitized we have become
completely
to violence and blood and gore.
Yeah.
Just 2-3 nights ago, I was watching a show on Netflix, and I wish I could tell you the name, and I can't now. But there was this scene where a guy walked into a cafe and started shooting up, and it was no edits. It was it was like actually watching a home video. It was very gory.
Wow.
And actually, it stunned me, because I'm just like, there are ways to do this without actually horrifying the viewer.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought, what have we become? Like, we become so, yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Stefanos Evribido, by the way.
Oh, good friend.
Yeah, because I told him that you were coming. I actually did invite him. Was like, no, I'm not going anywhere near social media or anything like that.
Stefanos, if you are listening, you should come to the show.
He will. I'll eventually get him. But you know what he said to me the other day when we were discussing? He said, I sat down one night, and, you know, he's got these big glass windows and, you know, populated area, houses around. And he said, I was watching a movie, and at some point there was a sex scene. And I was thinking, oh, my God, what if someone can see me watching this sex scene right now? And, you know, and I felt this shame and embarrassment, like that I should switch it off. And then the next day, he said, I was watching this really violent movie with blood, gore, and death. And he said, I didn't have the same thought. I thought, wow.
That's interesting.
That is so interesting.
Stefanos, I'm very concerned, because...
But it's so interesting and so true.
Because I feel the same with the sex scenes, and because they're becoming more and more graphic. I mean, they have become... They're veering between soft porn and hard porn now. And it begs the question of the rights of actors, by the way, but that's another debate. I am embarrassed, wondering who can see my TV screen when sex scenes come on. But I am also embarrassed when I see the horrible violent scenes that I am seeing lately. Yeah. So maybe I'm a little bit less immune than Stefanos and others. But
maybe.
No, it is getting there. But so I just want to jump back to this extreme. I was going to say extreme terrorism. Extreme tourism.
Yeah.
I do think that is the modern day age of discovery. The space shuttles going off into space, we will never conquer space unless it becomes touristically appealing. We have sent satellites out, we've landed rovers on Mars and whatnot.
But you know, apparently we've mapped out space to a much larger extent than we have our oceans. Apparently only 20% of our oceans is mapped out.
Yeah, but you know, it doesn't matter.
But you keep saying discovery.
Well, because I mean,
it's not discovery though, is it? I mean, you're literally just...
No, it's not discovery. Like the person going down in this Titan submarine or going on one of the rockets into space.
Yeah.
They're not discovering per se, but they are fueling the discovery potential. So basically, the more rockets we eventually launch into space, the more likely we are to discover something out there or something about ourselves. I mean, like, think about that when they went to the moon for the first time and they looked back and saw the Earth rise.
Yeah.
I mean, how it changed our perception of self. I mean, that was a huge moment in human history.
Yeah.
Huge moment.
Yeah.
But I think the same now with these space travel, especially. I mean, it's taking us off Earth. I mean, it's. I don't know how to explain this. I mean, we've only, as Europeans, I want to be very clear about that. As Europeans, we've only known the whole world the last 200 years.
That's so true.
Which is a blink of an eyelid in human history. It's
Literally.
nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane how nothing it is.
Yeah.
And even human existence in Australia is only 60,000 years. So to have already gone into space as tourists already, since we've discovered as Europeans, Australia only 200 years ago, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Within 200 years, we've gone to space.
Yeah.
You know, actually within 150 years, because it was 50 years ago since we went to the moon, you know.
Yeah.
So,
But we haven't gone down.
no, but I think it's also
We've gone
because-
up, but we haven't gone down. Apparently, the only living person who's been down the furthest is James Cameron,
Yeah, who made a
who made the Titanic. It's shocking.
But the question is, what is the relevance of going down? We know that the pressure can't sustain life with the current technologies we have. As we saw with the Titan, it crushed them.
Yeah, even though apparently there is life down.
There is life, yeah, but not
that's
human life,
That's
yeah.
a new discovery, actually.
Yeah.
We'd never thought that where the Mariana Trench is and all the way down, what is it, like 25,000 feet?
Yeah.
Or something.
Oh, no, it's more.
More than that, probably. Yeah. That we always thought that no life could be sustainable there. And actually, there is life.
So,
So you could call it a discovery, you're right.
yes. The other thing is that we assume for now that there is no life in at least our solar system. But can we be so sure? I mean, we have microscopes pointed at the moon and the other planets and whatnot, but it only takes one microbe on another planet to absolutely shatter our knowledge of self. I mean, I hate to say this, but if I was in NASA and I discovered a microbe on Mars, I would not announce it. I would not announce it until I was 100% sure I could control the reaction.
Wow.
Because
That
it
says a
would
lot, man. Yeah.
absolutely shatter religions, which religions are a form of law and order to a point. I mean, most of our law and order is based out of religion. Religion, basically, for the atheist, would be the initial steps of law and governance. Okay, so by shaking the core of that, which have a domino effect, which I don't know if we're ready for. I do not believe that we've been visited by other beings. I don't believe. That'd be something too hard to control. And it's not like the aliens would have come down and gone to Washington and said, "Hey, President of the USA," like the movie suggests. Like, I mean, come on. You randomly pick the right place? No. But I do believe, even if you're religious, I do believe that there is potential for life out there, because why not? Why not? Yes, the Bible says that we are the only ones created, blah, blah, blah. Hang on a second. That's how we've translated the Bible. Maybe very well there are other humans on other planets out there. Why on earth do we have such a massive solar system if it's all about just this one little marble?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
and there probably are other humans somewhere out there
statistically
fucking up just as much as we are and killing each other just the way that we are and hating each other.
By sheer, the philosophy of statistics says that there is, because is there a 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, 1 in an infinity chance of life out there? That is still a 1 in infinity. Like it's out there.
Yeah.
I am concerned if they do find life in our solar system, because it will erupt. It would change things. I'm talking about a microbe. Forget about an intelligent species.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, and certainly not in our lifetime. And I kind of hope it doesn't happen in our lifetime because I'm not ready for it.
Oh, really?
Because that's another way of. It's like I'm struggling to work Earth out at the moment. And like you said, we haven't even gone to the depths of the ocean.
I don't need this shit right now, please. Thank you.
We can't climb Everest without dying. We can't get into the Mariana Trench without dying. I mean, like we still have issues to sort out locally. We still got to feed our populations. We still got to control global warming, or should I say climate change, to be fair. You know, and coming back to this extremist tourism, I think it does. Extreme tourism is the David Attenborough of our day, I think. It has the potential to expose things we don't know or haven't seen. I mean, climbing Mount Everest helps educate us. It helps educate what the body can and can't do. It helps create technologies that can breathe at higher altitudes or lower altitudes or whatever, which in turn helps in hospitals produce better equipment for, you know.
I can see what you mean, but at the same time, what I've discovered from the little bit of research that I've done, that actually the risk, because you just said, like, we know Mount Everest can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Apparently, after every catastrophic season on Everest, which is every 3 to 5 years, people die. There's an increase in interests and in permits. And the thing is that if climbing Everest was 100% safe, then it wouldn't be an adventure. The risk.
It wouldn't be an adventure.
The risk appeal, which is what feeds these people that decide to go climbing Mount Everest. Meanwhile, landmarks are dead bodies. And we go back to the desensitized thing that we were talking about earlier.
Is the eye can achieve what they failed.
So that's what I'm thinking about when you have so much money, which, as you said before, fair enough, do what you wish with it. Yeah. Does the appeal of risk-taking go up?
I wouldn't say it's just because you're just because you're rich, you biologically change but I do think because you can afford. Let's look at me and you, okay? We are in the top 10% of the human financial list, okay? We can afford to jump in an airplane, hurl ourselves across the sky in a metal tube and land in another country that we've never been to before and don't know anybody there and wander around freely.
But we don't think that's a risk.
No, but it is. And 200 years ago, that was a huge risk. 200 years ago, you went to Hawaii and you got speared. You know, what happened to Captain Cook? You know, like, so.
Yeah.
And that was only 200 years ago, not even. You know, like, we have become desensitized. I mean, like, put somebody from a third world country that has never left their village, never seen an airplane, put them in an airplane tomorrow, they're going to be terrified. That's a risk. Dump them in a foreign city, dump them in the middle of New York or London, and there's a very good chance they'll get killed. They'll step out across the road and get hit by a car. Okay?
Yeah.
Not to demean them in any way for being silly or anything like that, but so, I mean, look at most Cypriots when they travel. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't want to be mean, but
are you referring to the bolly beef in the airplanes and the clapping when it lands?
No, I'm talking about some of the stupid things I've seen Cypriots do.
I like that you think that you're worse than me and you're not.
I mean, I've seen some stupid. Look, okay, let's not diss the Cypriots. Let's diss the Australians. Australians abroad are absolutely stupid. They have grown up in a nanny state where every warning sign possible and every cotton bud and every piece of padding has been put everywhere for them. They go overseas and all of a sudden they're renting dirt buggies and motorbikes and bungee jumping without questioning the safety of what they're doing. And they are dying. The same as Brits that come to Cyprus. Just recently there was another quad bike death.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that go off the cliffs in Agamas.
Yeah.
You know, because this is, I just think the difference is they're not aware of the risk of what they're doing. The billionaires that are going to the bottom of the ocean or flying into space are aware of the risk. But again, just like Christopher Columbus was willing to go into the unknown, and as was de Gamas and Captain Cook and all these different people, they were willing to take the risk because they were rich and could afford it. And
Curiosity.
Curiosity is a human affliction.
Yeah.
The common people like me and you, we ease our curiosity usually with surfing the internet and, I certainly am I would love to climb Mount Everest.
Would you?
I would love to do it. And why? Just to say I did it. I mean, the views will be no different to a view I can get from any other mountain, but I would love to be able to say I climbed the highest mountain. I'm not going to do it because I know the risk.
Yeah. It also costs shitloads, you know.
Yeah, well, no, I can't afford it. But
$100,000. Yeah, I think a trip to the South Pole and Everest is roughly about the same. I was going to say that I did discover that one British entrepreneur who wanted to be the first person to fly a Bell 505 light helicopter across the Atlantic. It's about being the first.
It's about getting your name. I think
no matter how stupid it is.
Humans want to become immortal, and one way to do that is to be written in history. So the first to do something, or the best, or the highest, or the long, whatever,
Yeah.
Then you have the lay people like me and you, where from Melbourne, for example, you can fly on a day trip, fly out of Melbourne, fly over Antarctica, sightsee from the sky. I think there's even one version where they actually land and you can stand on Antarctica for an hour and then fly back to Melbourne. And this is not that expensive. I mean, it's affordable. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's like a couple €1,000. It's not.
Okay, so that means that it's kind of like planes then, which it's normal. It's just part of our lives now.
I've never thought in my lifetime I'd be able to see Antarctica, let alone touch it. Now that I know it's possible and it's only a few €1,000, I would very seriously consider saving up for that. Like, first of all, I wait till my kids have gone through uni, and once they're all set up, once I have this expendable income that I can waste. The key word there is waste.
Yeah.
Then, I will. I'm sure I will do it before I die, visit Antarctica and touch Antarctica, because to me, that's the Earth's version of seeing the moon. I will not go to space. I'm too scared of the risks there, and I don't think in my lifetime will be safe enough.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
So you wouldn't go to space and you wouldn't go to the depths of the ocean?
No, not unless it became so insanely common, affordable, and safe.
Same.
Yeah, but I don't see that happening in our lifetime. And I could be wrong, it could.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that have happened in our lifetime we never thought would happen.
Yeah. And in the meantime, the Titanic is falling apart, so there's no point in
I have a fetish with it for Titanic as well.
Have you seen the new 3D images?
Yes. I mean, like, honestly, it'd be my dream for some trillionaire to lift the Titanic and put it on Earth as a museum. Yeah, I mean, like, have you ever been to any of these Titanic museums in any cities?
I have in Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating.
It is.
Come on, it's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
And I don't know why it's fascinating compared to any other kind of archaeological... I think it's because of the story of the Titanic. It's a sexy story. And it was probably one of the first major human disasters that was global news and able to reach all corners of the world. So it's probably our first, not the words, mass media, it's our first mass media event.
You're right, actually.
I think the only other one around the same period may have been the Hindenburg.
But it's shocking, we're 100 years later and we're still absolutely fascinated by the story.
It's the same as we are so fascinated by Hitler and World War. When there's been other... There was the Armenian genocide, but it didn't make the media because the media wasn't as powerful it wasn't as able. But 20 years later in World War it was.
Yeah.
So World War was our first televised front page news war. There have been other evil people like Hitler.
Yeah.
But they are just another news.
Didn't make the news.
Well, they make the news, but it's just it's just another one. Okay. So, I mean, like, we still, to this day, we're still making World War II movies. We're not really making Vietnam or Korea movies or, are we going to make Syria movies? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. There is a difference in the way that we view...
And I think, sorry to interrupt, I think the movies we're now seeing are the ones related to terrorism, because terrorism is something that kind of became global news in the 70s, with the PLO and things like this. So the movie Munich, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, like, these are the ones that were the first global attention garnering terrorists. Yeah. Depending on how you want to label them, but So I think that's why they are so famous. But we don't. I think ISIS, for example, Daesh. I think in 20 years' time we'll forget we've already forgotten about Al Qaeda.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, actually.
They all everyone gets replaced, but the PLO is one that we'll always remember. It was like the first one the whole world knew. You know.
Yeah.
Fair or unfair for them, but yeah.
So we'll see if our lives will be made into a movie anytime.
I'm sure
soon.
there will be.
They will be.
Of course.
Let's move on to our recommendations.
Yeah.
Costa.
Well, we're starting in Nicosia. I'd like to take people to Limoncello.
Is that still there?
It is still there.
I
and
did it.
very interestingly, Limoncello now has partnered with Mirko.
Ooh.
And Mirko operates with Limoncello next to each other. And
So what you get?
You can order from Mirko or you can order from Limoncello. My favorite thing is the halloumi kunefe.
Ooh.
It is to die for. Or the fagionara, which is lentils done in carbonara style. So good.
Wow.
So healthy.
Okay. So healthy. Who cares about
And
healthy?
his burgers and his fries. Oh my God, they're to die for. They are to die for.
I do remember the fries and the burgers, actually.
Yeah, look, I mean,
Yes.
Limoncello has to blame for about 5 of my kilos, I think.
Okay. All right.
But I also, what I love about it is something that I find is missing in Cyprus. You can sit there and you've got the marketplace around you. So there's a real atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so lovely and it's just really, and it's air conditioned and it's just,
Yeah,
it's
it
so
is.
nice.
It is. It's a nice
I
environment.
mean, I absolutely love it. Then if I'm to leave town, I like Yialos in Latchi.
Oh,
Yialos, everywhere along there is seafood restaurants, but Yialos is grill. So they do souvlaki and pork chops, and it's on the sea. So you got the sea view. The service is fantastic. The prices are very reasonable.
okay.
I mean, very friendly. I like it. And it's green. They've got green grass. They've got trees. I mean, you sit under the shade of these trees that they shaped to make nice umbrellas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic.
Okay. Sold.
Yeah, no, you definitely have to go check that out. The other place I recommend to everybody is Efta Yorkies, 7 St. George's in Yeroskibu.
Oh.
It's a little tavern. You need to book. And everything they serve you is homegrown, home-picked, hand-picked, organic. They feed you until you can't eat anymore.
Wow.
I mean, and it's not your classic Cypriot taverna. You're not just going to get souvlaki and things like that. You're going to get what is available then, what is fresh then, what is.
I love it.
And they serve things that we've forgotten about, like fidja, seaweed. I mean, Cypriots used to eat seaweed quite commonly. And I mean, like, you go to Greece today, you go to Bilion, and I've just forgotten the name of it. Gridama.
Oh.
Gridama, which is seaweed, is very commonly served all across the Bilion Volo
Okay.
area. So they serve it, and I love the fact that they
Efta Yorkides.
Efta Yorkies,
So
7 St. George's.
7 St. George's.
In Yeroskibu.
Okay.
There is a few other Kalidonia, Rotis. If we're going to go up into the mountains,
Oh,
this is the place that's famous for the milogrema of the minister. If you remember, during lockdowns, the minister went up and grabbed some milogrema, and it was the political controversy of the lockdowns.
I remember that, yeah.
Bless her, but she did amazing work for the advertisement of this place. But no, I've been to eat there, and the taverna is fantastic. They make the best keftedes on the island.
What's it called?
Kalidonia Rotis.
Kalidonia. Is that named after the waterfalls?
I assume it's named
Yeah.
after the
Okay.
waterfalls.
So is it in Platres?
In Platres, they asked for the pasticcio.
I was there the other day. We went to the Psilo Dentro,
That one is good for trout.
which we didn't eat trout.
What did you eat?
I love the macaroni do forno. They were that village style.
No, try the one at Kalidonia Rotis,
Okay.
trust me. But at Psilon Dendron, I don't eat fish, but I did try the trout that my wife ordered, and it was the first time I ate fish and thought,
really?
this is nice. But they make a surprisingly good pork chop for a fish restaurant in the top of a mountain. I mean, it just...
Okay,
It's
wow.
one of those
there
only
you go.
Cyprus. Yeah.
Only in Cyprus.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to recommend that you've watched lately that maybe you've liked?
I just watched Anatomy of a Scandal. I don't want to ruin it for the listeners, but watch it.
Yeah.
Watch it. It's cinematographically done so well, because normally courtroom dramas are boring. It's normally judge, defendant, prosecutor, judge, defendant, prosecutor, and dry.
Yeah.
But this shows you outside of court, inside of court. It has metaphorical scenes of how it expresses the feelings of the actors or the characters.
It's very well made.
It's very well made. It's
Sienna
easy
Miller
watching.
is absolutely amazing in it. I mean, she came back into the spotlight and she shocked me.
Yeah, and
Loved her.
I watch TV with one hand scrolling Facebook, as most people do these days.
Yeah.
This one made me put my phone down.
Okay.
So,
you know it's a good one when you do that.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that. Unfortunately, most of the other things I'm watching lately are a bit boring. I'm not being totally convinced about the things I've been watching lately. But no, I don't want to make any recommendations.
I did mention to you, well, I haven't watched this yet, but it's ready to be watched by me. Succession. I told you, it's a 4-series TV show.
Right.
Apparently, everyone has gone mad. It's so good.
Succession.
And I'm looking forward to watching the new Sex and the City episodes as well. You can laugh all you want. I'm watching it.
Sorry, what? New Sex and the City?
Oh, you didn't hear?
No, please tell me Samantha's back.
No. Oh, no, sorry. So they came back last year
Yep.
with a new spin-off called And Just Like That, and it was just the 3 of them. And in episode 1, they explained why Samantha wasn't there. Reality, she fucking hates Sarah Jessica Parker's guts, refused to go on. But apparently they managed to convince her for one scene in the new season of And Just Like That. She's not filming the scene with anyone,
Right.
but she's making an appearance. I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna.
I will watch it just because it is what it is.
I was a fan of Sex and the City.
Yeah, no, I was as well.
Always was, always will be. I don't care if it's politically incorrect anymore. I love it.
Yeah.
I can watch it with critical mind.
Your opinion on cancel culture?
My opinion on cancel culture. I switch between it doesn't exist and, oh my God, why are you cancelling that person? I haven't landed.
I struggle.
I heard another label for it the other day. Collective sabotage.
I've heard forced amnesia.
No, yours was better than mine.
Because I understand. Look, okay, I'll use the Michael Jackson example.
Oh,
Okay.
oh.
All right, now
tread carefully.
Yeah. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I love his music.
Oh my God, Costa, me too.
I love his music. Billie Jean comes on. I'm on the dance floor. I don't care where I am.
Don't you feel guilty? I'm singing and I'm moving to it and I'm like, shit, Eleni.
Look, I like to believe that the music is not just about the guy himself. There were writers, there were musicians, there were technical crew, there were, audio crew, studios, labels, CD makers. I mean, like, it's not just him. Now, I still don't really understand what happened, whether he really was guilty and all that. I've not really delved into it because...
You've seen the documentary?
I haven't. I haven't.
Oh, that's why you're saying what you're saying.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry. After that, there wasn't a doubt in my mind, Costa.
Without somebody having gone through judicial process, I can't say... I wasn't there. I've heard about the documentary. People have described it to me. They've told me the evidences and whatnot. I don't know. However, let's say he's guilty and he's evil. His music belongs to me, not him. Mm-hmm. Okay? It means something to me. I grew up with that music. It means something to me. By cancelling it out, what does that actually achieve?
Yeah.
If he's still getting royalties, let's say he was alive and he was getting royalties, then there might be a different story.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as The Cosby Show. I mean, that's a brilliant comedy. But then now we know about Bill Cosby. It's not Crosby, sorry, Cosby.
Cosby.
Yeah,
Don't bring Bing Crosby into this.
Yes. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, Cosby. Oh, see that? I'm not sure if I could watch it and laugh. With music, it's a bit different.
Yeah.
Out of mind, out of sight, out of mind sort of
I
thing.
got told by a friend not to watch Alf, the alien Alf, because he ate cats.
Who? What? Really? No. What? The brown furry dude?
I love him.
He ate cats.
He was a cat eater. That was his thing. His whole thing was don't let him see a cat because you'll eat the cat.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was the running theme throughout the whole series. You know, like they were scared to leave him on his own with the pet cat because he would eat it.
Yeah, but see, isn't that interesting that as a kid watching that, I didn't pick up on that.
You were okay with that. You were okay
Was
with
I
that.
okay with
no,
it?
No, in the 80s and 90s, we were okay with an alien eating cats. It was funny. Today, we're like, oh, no, cat has rights. You know, it's like, and we were like, oh, you know, I mean, it was different then. I mean, like, what are we watching today that in 20 years' time is going to have to be cancelled? I mean, I
You know, my 12-year-old has discovered Friends.
Right.
Right. And, you know, there are parts of it where I'm like, okay, do I need to
Filter this
a bit, pause and explain some things to him? But then again, I still laugh.
On the other hand, it is a form of education as well.
But
I mean,
at the same time, he's getting that. He's watching that, but he's also watching all these new shows, you know, with all, you know, the inclusivity and diversity and everything. So I feel it's okay.
I think look, we've got to give our kids some credit. They're not as dumb and sponges as we think they are. I mean, we grew up watching these. You and I aren't raping and murdering and, you know.
Exactly.
But then there are people that are raping and murdering. It's like, is that because they watch TV?
Yeah.
No, it's because the law enforcement hasn't successfully filtered them out. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So, now that you mentioned kids and kids being dumb and not and understanding certain things, sex education. There's a new, you know, I've done so much on sex education anyway, but for my English-speaking audience, let me explain, who is sex educator on Instagram, has now launched a new podcast. It's a short one. I think it's about 20 minutes. Is sex education controversial? And she goes into the reasons why we need to pay attention to sex education, why language matters, why we need to equip our kids with this knowledge and this information. There's so much.
What's the name?
Let me explain. Found her?
Yeah.
Follow. I got my husband to follow her as well. He loves her. So
there you go. Georgie's mummy's following. So
yeah. I'm there. So her new podcast is on Spotify. It's really to the point, short one, explains a few things, loved it. The other podcast that I wanted to recommend is The Genius Life with Max Lugarve. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I am taking part in a European Commission campaign for cancer screening. So I'm really into learning about all these different parts of cancer. And I found this podcast, which is the top cancer-fighting foods to eat every day. This guy, Joe Zundel, is an oncologist. He's done loads of work on cancer. And he debunks a lot of myths that we have in our minds about what cancer is, what causes it, and etc. So that's an interesting podcast to listen to.
The name again?
The Genius Life.
Yep.
You can find it on Apple Podcasts. He's got loads of health, well-being episodes that are really quite interesting, and also on sex and different versions of what we call health in our life. Books, Costa? Any books lately that you've read that you liked?
I'm still reading the one I mentioned last time. By
Which was?
By Fida Girius. This happens to me every time. I always forget the title.
Find it.
I'm so bad at that.
I started reading Greek books.
Oh, bravo.
I know. It's very brave of me.
No, good on you for doing that.
I need to start reading more Greek books.
I just came to Stranger in My Own Land.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about her Palestinian upbringing and the story about migration and refugeeism, and She spent time in Cyprus.
Oh, really?
And I'd love to see Fida on the island. So if you're listening, we need to have a book launch in Cyprus, Fida.
Yes.
But yeah, I haven't managed. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to say this, but I've had it for so long. But I've not managed to finish it because life is getting in the way so much. I mean, between kids and project work and consultancy and everything, it's I don't have the time. But I am carving out a couple of days next week, and I'm taking the book with me, and I'm going to try and finish it.
I'm with you on the when exactly do I find the time to switch off and focus on a book with 3 kids, work, family, and all that. I tend to carve out time over the weekend. There are moments over the weekend where I'm like, okay, now I am going to sit on the sofa and I am going to read my book.
What on earth are your kids doing during this time? Are they bouncing off the couch?
Do you know what? I am blessed. I am blessed, Costa, to live in an environment where there are no houses and no roads where I live. The only houses there are my brothers, my sisters, and my mum's. I have that village that you were talking about
This sounds
earlier.
some kind of hippie commune.
That is what it is. That is what it is. So, literally, my sister has 4 kids. I have 3. My other brother has 2. Yeah, there's shitloads of kids around there. Like, if you don't like
Have
kids,
you got your own postcode?
don't come there. Don't come there. And they leave the house in the morning. They go out. They go in search of their cousins, right? And then the other cousins.
Nice. This is nice.
And then they're literally missing all day outside. And, you know, me and my sister are like every 1 hour or 2 hours. Are they over there? Yeah, I can see them back in the field over there. Okay, all right. So that's how I get time.
No,
to read my books.
I envy this. I mean, this is how I grew up in Melbourne, where I lived in a court, and all the houses had kids.
Yeah.
So we would all play in the street, and then street lights came on. That's when we went home. You know?
When I say I'm blessed, I mean I am blessed, and so are they. And I feel very lucky that they have that opportunity.
How old is your youngest?
5.
Okay.
But he's like grown up with the other 2, and then there are tons of cousins before him. So it's like he's fine.
They're pulling him up. Yeah.
He's not the 5-year-old that my firstborn was.
No.
Where I was like, "Where are you going? Don't go outside."
Yeah, take off your cotton buds.
Don't say that. Okay. A Greek book recommendation is Nasia Dionysiou's book that I did a podcast with the other day, called Dinenas Gambos, and it's based on the 50,000 Jews that were in concentration camps in Cyprus in the late 40s. Which is an unknown part of history as far as I'm...
I have this is another interesting. I actually stumbled across some of the children that were born in Cyprus.
Nasia said the same thing, that she met a couple of them.
It's fascinating. And they have a real strong bond to Cyprus, even though many of them have only visited.
I know. So Dina's I will lend you that book when I'm done with it, so you can start working on your Greek as well. And the other book I wanted to is one that I finished a long time ago, but I really, really loved it. It's called The Book of Longings. It's a novel by Sue Monk Kidd. She also wrote The Secret Life of Bees.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And The Invention of Wings, I think. Anyway, The Book of Longings is about what if Jesus had a wife. Do you see why I love it? See why I'm recommending it? So yeah, those are my recommendations.
so many inappropriate comments I couldn't make. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's not.
I'll try not to get you into trouble this time, Costa.
Yeah, don't ever do a religious podcast with me, please. I'm going to get in trouble.
So that's it. Do you have any other recommendations that have popped to mind?
No.
Yeah.
No,
I think you guys are good for summer with these recommendations.
I can recommend overseas destinations if you like.
No, I'm not going anywhere.
I'm not trying to keep people off the island. No.
Yeah, you stay here on the island. Just be careful of the sharks.
Actually, what I will say to people is that go to the Polychrysochou area before the highway opens. Because once that highway opens, it won't be the Polychrysochou we see today. You know when you see the 1980s pictures of Nisi Beach and Fig Tree Bay, you're like, I wish I could go when it looked like that.
Yeah.
That's Polychrysochou
really?
now. Yeah. Go now while you can.
Is it that bad? Is it going to be that bad?
Well, it only makes sense. I mean, once you have a highway somewhere and you shred half an hour off the time, I mean, more people will go.
Okay.
More people will go.
All right. So go to Polychrysochous before it
And enjoy it before it becomes
destroyed.
concrete.
Yes. Yeah. Costa, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always an honor and a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. I mean, 1 hour and 43 minutes. I know, it's like...
Anyone still listening, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to you. And have a good summer. You're going to America, aren't you? Well, I hate you. I said that already.
I love you too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.